Bad news. I slept with my sworn enemy, James. Good news, he lost his memory. When I heard that James was desperately looking for the girl who was in his room last night, I secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Thank goodness. Due to the side effects of the drug, he can only remember the wild night, but he can't recall who the partner was. So naturally, he assumed that person was a woman. Can't blame him. After all, he's a straight guy. If he hadn't been drugged, he probably would never have had intimate contact with a guy in his life. And that guy was me, of all people. When I found out that James thought I was a girl, I felt like I'd had a narrow escape, until I heard his specific description of this girl. Long legs, slender waist, cries easily, has a bad temper, and likes to bite. James, you didn't lose your memory at all. You seem to remember everything quite clearly. It all started when a friend got married and booked an entire resort, inviting everyone to his wedding and a vacation. I happily went and met a junior at the banquet who graduated from the same university as me. The junior was cute and soft, exactly my type. Yes, I'm gay. And before that wild night with James, I thought I was a top. After all, I'm 180 centimeters tall and a handsome guy. I've received countless confessions from bottoms. I mean, I'm a pretty perfect top, right? So as a senior, it was only natural that I added the junior as a friend, and we started chatting happily. But as we talked, the junior's eyes gradually wandered off, further and further, then fixed on something, his eyes glowing with enthusiasm. I looked in the direction he was looking, puzzled, and saw James. I knew it. Why is it always you? He was the same as before, tall with long legs and handsome features, the most eye-catching wherever he went. The junior's eyes were completely glued to him like glue. I still didn't give up and kept struggling. Well, junior, senior, do you know who he is? The junior pointed at James. He's so handsome. I wonder if he has a boyfriend. I gritted my teeth and said, forget it. He's straight. The junior's mouth opened wide in a circle. Really? Senior, how do you know? Do you know him? Not well. I snorted twice. Anyway, I just know. The junior looked disappointed but still didn't give up. What if we try to turn him gay? Senior, do you think it's possible? I closed my eyes in despair, and with the thought that no one should have a good time, I said, impossible. He's allergic to gay guys. But the junior didn't listen to me at all. Suddenly, he grabbed my hand and shook it excitedly. Senior, he's looking over here. Alarm bells went off in my head, and I looked in James' direction. James still had that arrogant look, coldly looking at us as if we owed him money. He glanced at me, then his eyes landed on the junior. The junior was clearly thrilled and shook my arm even more eagerly. He looked at me. He's so handsome. James furrowed his brows, as if he'd seen something disgusting, and then withdrew his gaze. Look, see what I told you. He's allergic to gays. Even though James' disgust was quite obvious, the junior was already smitten with him and ignored me, searching around for information about James. So I had no choice but to drink alone, seething with anger. Good heavens! How many times has this happened already? Why do all the cute and submissive guys I fancy end up falling for James? The more I thought about it, the angrier I got, and I downed a few more drinks. Before I knew it, I was mixing red wine and liquor, and the aftereffects were getting stronger. My head was getting dizzier and dizzier. I couldn't drink anymore. I decided to go back to my room and sleep. However, on my way back, I unexpectedly saw a man and a woman acting furtively in the corner. I crept closer and just in time heard the man slip a room card into the woman's hand. The drug should have taken effect by now. This is James' room card. Just go straight up. The woman took the room card with a smile. You did a good job. I'll transfer the balance to your account later. I was a bit tipsy but managed to figure it out. The woman must have hired someone to drug James, planning to sleep with him and then cling to him. And I, probably because I'd had too much to drink, meddled and stopped them. Young lady, this isn't a good idea, is it? I said with a smile, waving my phone. I've recorded it, you know, Oliver. She seemed to recognize me and looked a bit flustered. You heard that? Yeah. I nodded. You're being too naive, sister. Do you really think James will take responsibility if you force yourself on him? Wrong, so wrong. He's ruthless and has a serious cleanliness obsession. If you actually sleep with him, he'll make you pay dearly. The girl hesitated. You're kidding me, right? I've known him since high school. Don't I know what kind of temper he has? I made a throat-slitting gesture. He's known for being heartless. You'd better be careful. The girl was clearly intimidated by me. While she was hesitating, I easily took the room card from her hand. Lucky for you, you met me, the kind-hearted savior. I'll keep this a secret for you, and I'll just take the room card. I took the room card and went upstairs. My room was on the same floor as James's. When I passed by his room door, I stopped. I originally planned to go back to my room and sleep, but my problem was that I was just too nice. Even though I was this drunk, I was still thinking, should I go and warn James? What if someone else knew he was drugged and was going to frame him? I'm such an angel, a good guy, a living Lei Feng. Lei Feng is a Chinese role model known for his selfless helping others. Here it can be understood as a very kind-hearted person. While praising myself, I rang the doorbell. I waited for a while, but no one answered the door. Oh no, nothing happened to James, did it? Without thinking much, I used the room card to open the door. There was an ambiguous light on in the room. There was no one on the bed, and the sound of water was coming from the bathroom. I pushed open the bathroom door and saw James lying in the bathtub. He was soaking wet, his eyes tightly shut, his face flushed, his breathing rapid, and his right hand moving quickly. Maybe hearing the noise, he frowned and opened his eyes, looking towards me. The alcohol made my reaction slow. By the time I realized what he was doing, it was too late to run. James didn't stop his action. His eyes seemed like they were going to devour me. I swallowed awkwardly. Sorry to interrupt. You go on. You go on. I turned around and was about to run, but before I could take 2 steps, he grabbed me. James pinned me against the wall. I'm already tall, but he's a head taller than me. He's so strong that he easily trapped me, and his voice was hoarse as he said, "Oliver, I'm gay. This is way too exciting for me. I'm afraid I won't be able to control myself." James, look clearly. It's me, Oliver. My head was getting dizzier and I could barely think. Aren't you straight? I'm a guy. James panted and stared at me for a while. I thought he'd come to his senses, but the next second, he started unbuttoning my shirt. I was left stunned by his kiss, my mind completely blank. He scooped me up, threw me over his shoulder, and carried me to the bedside. When I woke up and saw James's handsome face sleeping soundly beside me, I felt like the sky was about to fall. What are you waiting for? Run. I put on my clothes and dashed back to my room as fast as I could, using all my strength. When I was rinsing off in the bathroom, I looked in the mirror and saw hickeys of different shades on my body. I was furious. There's no justice in this world. Good deeds go unrewarded. The more I thought about it, the more desperate I felt. When James wakes up, he's definitely going to try to kill me. I don't even have time to pack my luggage. I'm planning to make a run for it right away. But then, fortune smiled on me. Just as I was about to escape, I learned that James had lost his memory due to the side effects of the drug. He remembered being drugged yesterday and having a wild night with someone, but he didn't remember who it was. Heck, he even thought that person was a girl. I heard that the girl left her earrings on the bed. I was speechless. Earrings? 3 seconds later, it dawned on me. Since my mom's birthday was coming up, I asked a friend abroad to buy me a pair of luxury brand earrings. This friend also came to the wedding this time and gave me the earrings. I was drunk as a skunk. I thought the gift box was uncomfortable in my pocket, so I took it out and just tossed the earrings right into my pocket carelessly. Maybe when I was taking off my clothes, the earrings fell out of my pocket and stayed in James' room. My heart ached even more. These earrings were a limited edition item. The price tag had so many zeros. I tried to do a good deed, but not only did I lose my reputation, I also ended up losing a pair of limited edition earrings. And I was even slandered as being a crybaby with a bad temper who likes to bite. The villain sues first. Who on earth likes to bite? Where can I go to get justice for this? I was itching to rush back to James' room and punch him a couple of times, but I couldn't. Not only couldn't I, but I also had to pretend that nothing had happened. First of all, James is straight, homophobic, and doesn't seem to like me much. Although my original intention was good, I'm afraid he wouldn't think twice and would just assume I dirted his body and might even try to get rid of me. Secondly, I really can't accept that a handsome 6-foot-tall guy, was the one on the receiving end. All things considered, I decided to play dumb. Since there tend to be a lot of gossip in this kind of situation, The surveillance cameras in the building we were staying in were turned off to let everyone have fun without worry. I comforted myself. It's okay. I definitely won't be found out. Even though he was blackout drunk, I still decided to make a run for it. However, just as I finished packing my luggage, dragged my suitcase, and opened the door, I saw the person I'd spent the night with last night. His hand was half raised, as if he was about to ring the doorbell. He had changed into new clothes, but the top button wasn't done up, revealing a tiny bit of his chest. To my misfortune, I immediately caught sight of the tooth mark on his collarbone. If I'm not mistaken, I must have been the one who bit him. Without hesitation, I slammed the door shut. "Oliver," James' cold voice rang out. "Open the door. What's up?" Guilt made me start spouting nonsense. "I'm busy punching holes in soda crackers. Don't disturb." James was much calmer than me. "I've got something to ask you." I felt as if I had thorns on my back. "Just ask through the door." "You seem nervous?" James said. "Could it be that last night?" I flung the door open again with a swish. I tried hard to stay calm. "Ask quickly if you've got something." James looked at the suitcase by my feet. "Where are you in such a hurry to go?" "None of your business." I dodged the question. "You said you had something. What is it?" James looked down and stared at me. "About last night. I heard about it. You're looking for someone, right?" Oliver put on a fake act and tried to clear his name. "I also heard that girl is a crybaby and has a bad temper. Could you have made a mistake? After all, you were blackout drunk. It's not nice to wrongly accuse someone, is it? This girl said you took the key card to my room from her." James interrupted me, took out his phone and found a photo of the girl I met yesterday. He stared at me. "You were the last one to enter my room, weren't you?" All my hairs stood on end and I quickly pulled him into the room. "I was indeed the last one to enter your room yesterday, but I just wanted to return the key card to you." I started making up stories. "When I went in, your room was dark. I called you but you didn't answer. I thought you weren't there, so I put the key card on the table by the door and left." James crossed his arms over his chest and looked down at me. His face seemed to say, "I'll just listen to your excuses. It's true. It's really true." To make it more believable, I added some plot on my own. "When I was going back to my room, I seemed to see a girl enter your room, but it was a bit far away, so I didn't see her face clearly. Alas, what a pity." I was almost impressed by my own ability to talk nonsense, but James knocked me down with just one sentence. "I remember you're gay." I tried to argue again. "So what if I'm gay? I'm picky, okay? Do you think I'd sleep with just any guy I meet?" James didn't answer me. Instead, he took a step closer. Before I could react, he yanked down the zipper of my hoodie. There were several hickeys below my neck. For that reason, I specifically changed into a turtleneck sweatshirt. When I pulled up the collar, could cover my neck, but with James' yank, those hickeys were revealed. I quickly covered my neck. "Why do you always like to take off people's clothes without a word? Always." James narrowed his eyes. "What are these then?" Realizing I'd said the wrong thing, I changed the subject. "Haven't you seen mosquito bites? Don't be so dirty-minded. Just seeing a red dot, and you start having dirty thoughts." He sneered. "Better be done asking." I shooed him away. "If you're done, get out of here. I'm busy." James didn't move. "I'm looking for the person from last night. You help me." I felt like a mouthful of blood was stuck in my chest. "How can I help? Didn't you say you saw that girl from afar? You can help me identify her." Seeing my reluctant look, James said, "You're so hesitant. Are you feeling guilty about something?" "No way." I forced a few twitches at the corners of my mouth. "Fine, I'll help." Only then did James stop pestering and turn to walk towards the door. However, after opening the door, he stopped and turned to glance at my neck. I quickly pulled up the zipper he'd yanked down. "What now?" His eyes were full of meaning. "These mosquitoes are quite something. What a guy. Why is he complimenting himself like this?" I thought James was just kidding when he asked me to help him identify people, but he was serious. On Friday night, I was hanging out at a bar with friends. The hickey James left had long since faded, so I could wear my V-neck shirt without a care. While at the bar, people came up to chat with me one after another. There were girls and guys. I politely turned down the girls. The guy who came to chat was really bold. He put his hand right on my shoulder and gave me a flirty look, saying, "Bro, we're the same kind of people, right?" I was a bit surprised. How can you tell? I can. He winked his long, fox-like eyes at me. Buy me a drink? I can tell you more. I was really curious, so I bought him a drink. So, can you tell if I'm the dominant one or the submissive one? What are you talking about, bro? He chuckled. A tall, handsome guy like you is definitely the dominant one. He's a miracle worker. I felt much better, but then he suddenly made a U-turn. However, I was taken aback. There's a however? He took a sip of his drink. But if you meet someone even more dominant, you might be the submissive one then. I asked. Like who? Like, he twirled his finger and pointed in a direction. Like that handsome guy over there. You'd be the submissive one then. A sense of foreboding welled up in me. I followed the direction his finger was pointing. Sure enough, it was James again. Oh no, Doc, I'm feeling sick again. James seemed to have spotted me too. His expression was cold. I quickly turned my head back and said indignantly to the man with fox-like eyes, "You're mistaken. He's straight." Oh. As if finding something really interesting, he wore a mischievous look. Then how about giving it a try? I asked. How? He smiled mysteriously and got closer and closer to me, almost pressing against me. I was startled by him and forgot to move for a moment. When I came to my senses and was about to push him away, I heard someone call me, Oliver. I turned my head and saw James' irritated face. He glanced at me, then at the man with fox-like eyes, and directly grabbed my arm and pulled me away. Come on, I need to talk to you. I had rolled up my sleeves to my elbows. His palm was cold as it touched my bare arm. I was so stunned by his actions that I just let him lead me away. James pulled me into a private room, made me sit on the sofa, then crossed his arms and looked down at me. Didn't you say you were picky? You can fancy a guy like that? A guy like that? I thought about the appearance of the man with fox-like eyes. He was definitely good-looking. I decided to speak up for him. He looks pretty good, actually. James said coldly, if you have bad eyesight, go see an eye doctor. I can pay for your registration fee if you're short of money. I was baffled by his anger. How did I manage to piss this guy off again? Mind your own business about my eyesight. What did you drag me here for? James took out his phone and opened a PDF for me to see. I took the phone in confusion and found that every page had a photo of a girl. What's this? I asked. A list of some of the girls who attended the wedding that day. James said, take a look and see if you recognize anyone. My hand holding the phone suddenly froze. Dude, you're serious. It was torture, absolute torture. I was sweating while pretending to look at the photos carefully. James sat beside me, his eyes sharp, like an invigilator watching closely to see if a struggling student was cheating during an exam. After looking through all the photos, I pretended to be regretful and said to James, what a pity. It seems none of them is the one. Is that so? James readily accepted the result and put away his phone. Okay. I got it. His easy acceptance made me feel uneasy. I tried to persuade him. You don't necessarily have to find her. Consider it a fleeting romance. It's beautiful too, right? We're all adults. This can't be your first time, can it? Is it really that important? James said, it is my first time. I shut up. Forget I said anything. James continued, you think you can sleep with someone and then run away? Dream on. I got goosebumps. So, hypothetically, if you find her, what are you going to do? He stared at me for a long while, then gave a devilish smile and let out a cold laugh. That laugh said more than 1,000 words. I understood. This cold joke is pretty much like a death notice. To stay alive, I've been trying my best to avoid meeting James ever since. But he just won't leave me alone. Whenever I go to a bar, within half an hour, James will surely show up right when I'm about to add a cute new acquaintance, a young bottom, as a friend, and drag me away mercilessly to help him identify someone. After looking at a whopping 4 PDF files and over 50 girls' faces, I was on the verge of a breakdown. For a moment, I even thought about throwing my morals out the window and just pointing at any girl randomly. But my conscience got the better of me, and I shook my head. None of them. James nodded briskly. Okay, then we'll look again next time. There's more. I roared wildly. If you can't find her, just let it go. Why bother? Maybe that girl just doesn't want to see you and is deliberately avoiding you. Is that so? James asked. Why? I blurted out. There are plenty of reasons. For instance, maybe her experience that night wasn't so great. The moment those words left my mouth, the whole world fell silent. James was silent, and so was I. I felt like James was about to pull out an 80-meter sword from behind to chop me up. But after a while, he just repeated, "The experience wasn't great?" To be honest, even though I was dead drunk, I vaguely remembered that the experience was actually pretty good. The problem was that he had way too much stamina. I felt like my whole body was falling apart, with a sore back, aching waist, and cramping legs, as if I'd been beaten up severely. James lowered his head, as if deep in thought. I thought his male pride had been hurt, and feeling a bit sorry for him, I patted him on the shoulder. "Don't be too sad." Before I could finish my consoling words, James looked up and interrupted me. "Impossible." "Huh?" I questioned. "What's impossible?" He looked calm. "The experience couldn't have been bad." I scoffed. "How can you be so sure? Weren't you blacked out?" "I just can't remember what it looked like. I didn't forget everything." James looked at me meaningfully. "I remember quite a bit." I reasonably suspect that James has planted informants in the bars I often go to. As soon as I show up, they come to block me. I was forced into a corner, so I stopped going to the bar and started hiding at home. Who knew that even when I hid at home, James found my place? When I opened the door and saw James, I thought I had opened the door the wrong way. So I closed and opened it, then closed and opened it again. When I was about to close it for the third time, he held the door. "Don't bother. Even if you close it 100 more times, it'll still be me." Then, with a calm expression, he swaggered right into my house. "I'm out of ideas. I really am." After being forcefully dragged to identify someone for the nth time, I came up with the ultimate trick: going to a gay bar. James is straight. He surely can't come to the gay bar to catch me. I actually rarely expose my orientation on my own initiative. Plus, I think there are a lot of shady people in gay bars, so I hardly ever go there usually. This time, I was really pushed to the limit by James, so I very rarely went to a gay bar. After turning down several guys who tried to strike up a conversation, I was drinking alone at the bar. For some reason, I wasn't really in the mood and kept feeling like something was missing. After finishing a glass of wine, I heard the excited voice of the guy I just rejected beside me. "Damn, what a lucky day." There was already a total hottie next to me, and now another one shows up. "Oh my god, he's really handsome. I wish we could each have one." "Well, I want the one next to me. He's sunny and good looking." The other one has such a cold expression. He seems hard to approach. I looked up and saw someone who, in my mind, definitely shouldn't be in a gay bar. James had entered the gay bar. James was dressed in all black, which made him look even more extraordinary. He spotted me right away, but unlike before, he didn't come over to me. Instead, he expressionlessly looked away and went to sit in a booth. "Huh? What's that supposed to mean? Playing hard to get?" "Huh?" So I also pretended not to see him and ordered another drink, but I couldn't help stealing glances at him while I drank. James had just sat down in the gay bar for less than a moment, and so many people came to hit on him that you couldn't count them on one hand. I have to say, James' looks and his aura are exactly what a lot of bottoms are into. And me, even though I have a perfect 180 cm body, I often get the short end of the stick because of my baby face. There was even a guy who was almost a head shorter than me trying to make a move on me. After I turned him down with "Sorry, we're not a match," he was really surprised. "No way. How could you be a top?" Sigh. It's all just sad memories. I watched as James turned down several people, and then another guy shyly walked up to him. My eyes lit up. This young guy is so cute and adorable. He's exactly my type. I shouted in my heart. Reject him quickly. If you reject him, I can step in and comfort his wounded heart. However, I miscalculated. James looked at the guy for a while, then said something. The young guy broke into a happy smile and sat down next to him. Sat down. Down. Not only did he sit down, but the young guy also took out his phone, seemingly showing a page, and James took out his phone and scanned the screen. I was left speechless. What's going on? Isn't James straight? Isn't he homophobic? Doesn't he break out in hives at the sight of gay people? How come he's in a gay bar, allowing a guy to get so close to him and even adding him as a friend? I'm sitting in a rather secluded spot, so I can only see their profiles. From my angle, that guy was getting closer and closer to James, and it even seemed like he was about to kiss him. A strange, uncomfortable feeling welled up inside me. My body reacted faster than my mind. I shot up from my seat, walked quickly over to them, and yanked James up. I thought James would resist, but he, a 6'3" giant, was easily pulled up by me. I dragged him out of the bar quickly, not hearing the conversation that was getting fainter and fainter behind us. Someone asked the young guy, "Hey, did you add that super handsome guy as a friend?" "Not yet." "Then what were you guys doing just now? You were so close, almost kissing." No, it was just a visual illusion." I went to strike up a conversation, and he looked at me for a while. I thought there was a chance, but then he told me to sit down and transferred me 10,000 yuan, asking me to pretend to be really close to him. I don't know why, but since I could get some money, I just did as he said. Actually, we were quite far apart. Huh? So that's what happened. But he was just dragged away by another handsome guy. I guess they're a couple. He made you pretend to be close to make the other guy jealous. I think so too. Alas, what a pity. I was planning to hit on the other guy if this one didn't work out. Who would have thought he was the other guy's boyfriend? Yeah, what a shame. I pulled James to the door. A cool breeze blew past me, waking me up. What the hell am I doing? My mind finally came to its senses. I was stiff all over. I looked down and saw James's arm, which I had grasped so tightly that it was even a bit red. As if I'd been electrocuted, I suddenly let go of his hand and jumped back a step. James's lips curled up slightly, and a sly glint of victory sparkled in his eyes. "Oliver, what are you pulling me for?" "Yeah, what am I pulling you for?" I was so embarrassed that I felt itchy all over. "Weren't you homophobic in high school?" "I was afraid you'd have a reaction, so I pulled you out." "You're welcome. Haha. Is that so?" James seemed to be holding back a laugh. "But you don't need to do that in the future." I asked. "Huh? Why?" "You're not homophobic anymore." "Yeah." James shrugged. "I've taken traditional Chinese medicine to fix it." "Fix my ass. How can there be a reverse cure like this?" Although I was complaining in my heart, I still kept an awkward smile on my face. "Is that so? That's good. That's good. Well, I'm gonna go now. Bye." I walked ahead on my own, and James didn't say anything, just followed me. I stopped and turned around. "What are you following me for?" "Oliver." James called me. "Why do you remember my high school stuff so clearly? Are you—" He lowered his head slightly and leaned closer to me. "Do you like me?" The last 3 words exploded in my mind, and a flood of memories came rushing in, overwhelming me. At the beginning of the first year of high school, James and I were arranged to sit at the same desk in the last row because of our heights, which were the first and second in the class. I'm quite an active person and like to talk to people, so James naturally became my first choice. However, ever since I got to know James, he always had a cold expression on his face and seemed indifferent to me. Fortunately, I'm an optimist by nature. Even if he ignored me, I could still keep chattering. And under my persistence, James gradually started to respond to me, although his replies usually didn't exceed 10 words. Since high school, James often received confessions. I was used to it, but one day, a boy named William, who was in the neighboring class and had a good relationship with me, handed me a love letter and asked me to give it to James. I was stunned. William was really cute. We were desk mates in junior high school and had a good relationship. At that time, I didn't know I was gay. I just thought that because he was small and weak, I always subconsciously wanted to take care of him. I looked at the love letter in disbelief. You like boys?" "Yeah." William seemed a bit embarrassed. "Oliver, you won't look down on me, right? I know you're a nice person and you've been good to me. That's why I came to you for help." Of course I wouldn't look down on him. I took the love letter with mixed feelings and then gave it to James with the same feeling. James didn't even glance at it. "Throw it away for me. Come on, at least take a look." I felt bad. The other person wrote it seriously. James completely ignored me and even became colder towards me. I had no choice but to return the love letter to William. Although William looked disappointed, he didn't say anything. Unexpectedly, a few days later, when school was over one day, I happened to see William and James together. William looked pitiful, kept saying something and reached out to touch James' sleeve. But as soon as he touched it, James shook it off violently. I've said it so many times. I'm straight and homophobic. Stop bothering me. James' eyes were full of disgust. He turned around and walked away without looking back at William once. I couldn't stand it anymore. I caught up with James and blocked his way. Hey, aren't you being too much? Are you taking his side? James frowned and looked at me for a while. What? Do you feel sorry for him? Yeah, I do feel sorry for him. I didn't think there was anything wrong with that. Even if you don't like him, you shouldn't talk so harshly. William is a nice and kind guy. He can't take it if you talk to him like that. The more I talked, the uglier James' face became. He took out his phone, found some messages and showed them to me. Take a look for yourself. These harassing messages were all sent by the nice and kind little brother you mentioned. I took a closer look and found that William had been constantly sending James some harassing messages. The words were bold and explicit, completely different from the shy and timid William the first knew. I blocked him, but he used other numbers to text me. James took back his phone. Thanks to him, I've become completely homophobic. I was speechless for a moment. James ignored me, walked a few steps forward, then turned back to look at me with an extremely cold expression. Oliver, you care so much about him. Don't tell me you're gay too. If it hadn't been for James' question, I probably wouldn't have realized until much later that I was gay. It was as if something hit me right in the head. I suddenly understood my excessive concern for William. I had always thought it was just an elder brother's concern for a younger brother, but it turned out that I might have a crush on him. I'm gay. I'm actually gay. On the day I found out I was gay, I also learned that James was straight, a homophobic straight guy. No wonder he never seemed to like me no matter how friendly I was before. After figuring all this out, when it was time to change seats next, I took the initiative to ask the teacher to switch my deskmate. If you don't like me, well, I don't like you either. I was no longer James' deskmate and we barely talked anymore. Later, when we were divided into liberal arts and science classes in the second year of high school, we were no longer in the same class, and my hazy crush on William gradually faded away with time. When high school ended, all the freshman classmates got together for a meal again. I'm not good at drinking but love to drink anyway. My tolerance is average, yet I drank a lot and ended up passing out later. In a daze, I heard someone say, "Oh my God, how drunk Oliver is. Who can send him home first? Come here and help him up first. Oliver, don't move around. You're about to fall." I was shakily helped up, but the person holding me lost their balance, and I felt like I was about to fall again. However, when I was halfway down, a pair of strong hands grabbed my waist. "I'll send him." "Great. Luckily you're willing to send him, James. Otherwise, there really wouldn't be anyone in the class who could hold him up." Just like that, in a half-asleep and half-awake state, I was supported by the waist all the way, got in the car, got out of the car, and then was woken up. "Wake up." It was a familiar voice. "We're downstairs at your place." I tried hard to open my eyes and saw James's face. "James?" I tilted my head and looked around. "Am I home?" "Yeah." Seeing that I could stand steadily on my own, he withdrew his hands that were holding me. "Go home and lie down, drunkard." "Oh, okay, thanks." I waved at him. After unlocking the downstairs door with face recognition, I walked in. Just as I was about to close the door, I suddenly thought of something and said to James, "Oh right, James, there's one more thing. I want to thank you." "James." "What is it?" I was already talking nonsense. "Thanks to you, I realized that I'm gay. You should get that homophobic symptom checked out, you know? Being homophobic means you're in the closet." James's expression got worse and worse. I quickly said goodbye and closed the door. That was my last impression of him. During college, we hardly had any contact. Even though we were friends on chat apps, we never chatted. I only heard news about him from mutual friends. After starting work, we were in the same city again. Since we had mutual friends, we would occasionally run into each other at the same parties. But our relationship still wasn't great. Every conversation was laced with hostility. Until that night, the moment his burning kiss landed, I realized that I didn't seem to want to pull away. When James showed me the list of girls who attended the wedding for the umpteenth time and asked me to identify the one, I shook my head as usual and said, "No." James seemed to be used to it. "Are you sure?" I said. Sure, I guess. That's strange. James suddenly changed his tune. I've shown you pictures of all the girls at the wedding. None of them is the one. I swallowed hard and tried to stay calm. I told you it was far away that day. I couldn't see clearly. I can only identify by feeling. Oh. James put on a thinking face. If none of the girls is the one, do you think there's a possibility that the person is a guy? Sweat immediately started to pour down my face. Huh. I stammered. No, that can't be right. Even if you're not homophobic anymore, you wouldn't sleep with a guy, would you? Why not? James stared at me. Didn't you say that homophobia is just being in the closet? Maybe I'm in the closet, and the meds just made me discover my true nature. Wait, is he coming out right now? Isn't this a bit too sudden? I didn't say anything, just kept wiping my sweat. Why are you sweating so much? James grinned wickedly. Could it be that you're feeling guilty? After all, you're the last person I know who entered my room. I forced a couple of laughs. Who's feeling guilty? I just have a weak kidney, that's all. James continued, you said you saw someone else enter my room. Who knows if you're lying? I made a last-ditch effort. But there's also the earring. Do you think the earring must belong to the person? He was like Sherlock Holmes possessed. What if it was bought as a gift? I was almost about to kneel down and admit, yes, it's me. It's really me. But unexpectedly, he suddenly dropped his aggressive tone, turned around, and walked away. Wait until I go back and gather information about the men who were there. Then I'll come to you for identification. I raged in impotence. You son of a bitch. What the hell are you gathering? You've already figured out it was me, right? You were just pretending to ask me to identify, just making fun of me, weren't you? I was already prepared to be exposed at any time. However, James didn't come to me for the next week. I was furious and uneasy, not knowing what he was up to, until I heard from someone else that James had found the person from that night. I touched my butt and slowly showed my confusion. No, who did he find? I took the initiative to send him a message. I heard you found the person from that night. James replied quickly, yes, thanks for your help before. You don't need to bother anymore. I've decided to give it a try with him. I was like, what the hell is this? He analyzed so much that day. I thought he had already guessed it was me. How on earth did he manage to get every step of the process right, but the conclusion completely wrong? I should have felt like I'd had a narrow escape, but I wasn't as happy as I'd expected. Instead, I was seething with rage. So, all that suffering was for nothing? I couldn't figure out why I was so unhappy. The more I thought about it, the more frustrated I got, so I bombarded James with text messages. Are you sure that's the guy from that night? Are you really sure? James replied instantly, yes, he came to me on his own, and the details match up. I was so anxious that I was scratching my ears and cheeks. You've got to be careful. There are so many scammers out there. This could be a honey trap. James remained calm. No, my gut feeling tells me it's him. I was losing my mind. What gut feeling? You don't have any gut feeling. Gut feelings don't count. We need evidence. I kept pressing. Didn't you say the guy from that night had long legs, a slender waist, a bad temper, and a tendency to bite? Do all those match too? James simply replied, yeah, having lost several rounds. I finally asked, not willing to give up. Do you have a photo? I can help you identify him. James said, no, but we could have a meal together, as a way to thank you for your help before. Without thinking, I agreed right away. I'm going to see which bastard dares to pretend to be me. I'll show you what a poor imitation looks like. On the day of the meeting, I deliberately wore high-waisted pants and tightened my belt as much as possible. For some reason, I also undid 2 more buttons of my shirt. After that, I thought my behavior was completely crazy. It was as if I was possessed. I slapped myself twice and then buttoned them back up. This is so weird. It's just too strange. It seems like ever since I met James, my thoughts and actions have become unlike myself. The meeting place was set at a private club. When I arrived, only James was sitting on the sofa. Hearing me come in, he looked up and said calmly, "You're here." Yeah. I looked around the room, not seeing anyone else. I asked him, "Where's that person?" James pointed to the small room inside. "In there." "Oh, so he's hiding someone away." I stormed angrily towards the inner room, pushed the door open, and found it was a small lounge. There was no one there. I turned around, puzzled, and asked James, "Where's the person?" "There isn't one?" James stood up, strode over, and stood behind me, saying, "Isn't that him?" Looking at the empty lounge, my hairs stood on end immediately. "Dude, don't scare me. Are you possessed by something evil?" James chuckled softly, put his hands on my shoulders, and turned my body to the left. He leaned down and whispered in my ear, "Still don't see it?" I saw it. On the far left of the lounge was a large full-length mirror. In the mirror were me and James. So, did I find the right one? In the moment I was stunned. James's hand slid down from my shoulder and pinched my waist. Skinny waist, long legs. I was furious. I turned around and punched him right in the chest. He took the punch obediently, then smiled and grabbed my hand, commenting, "You've got quite a temper." The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. "You dared to play tricks on me. Be reasonable." James's smile grew wider. "Didn't you play tricks on me first? How could that be the same?" I glared at him. "You bastard. Do you have any idea how much my ass hurts? I've been through so much, and my back is almost broken. I always wanted to find a cute bottom to settle down with, but now it's impossible. You owe me a cute bottom." James seemed to be tired of listening to me. He furrowed his brows, lowered his head, and silenced my chattering mouth. I suddenly widened my eyes. James kissed me so forcefully that I could barely breathe. I bit him hard, and then he gradually let go. He licked the wound at the corner of his mouth and showed a triumphant smile. You like to bite." James sat on the couch, and I stood there, grilling him. "When did you remember? Were you really amnesiac?" He nodded and then shook his head. "When I first woke up, my head really hurt, and my memory was blurry, but actually, I already vaguely thought it was you. By night, I remembered everything completely. So soon. Couldn't believe it. Then you still asked me to help you identify? You just wanted to mess with me, right?" "I didn't want to mess with you." James looked at me seriously. "You ran away so fast. I was afraid you'd regret it, so I wanted to give you more time to think things through." I didn't understand. "Think through what?" James raised his eyebrows. "Oliver, even if I hadn't remembered, a big reason I thought it was you was that I knew, even if I was drugged, I wouldn't just sleep with anyone. It was only because it was you that it could happen." I was stunned by what he said and dryly replied, "You're quite the decent guy." James was so annoyed by me that he couldn't help but laugh. He exerted a bit of force and pinched my chin. "Stop daydreaming about those pretty bottom boys. It'll never happen in this lifetime." A red mark appeared on my chin from his pinch. "No. Why should I? Aren't I enough for you?" James stroked my waist. "I'm richer, taller, and handsomer than them. You're stuck with me for the rest of your life." He looked serious, grabbed my hand, and kissed the back of it. My heart was pounding. "James, do you like me that much?" "Yeah." James kissed my hand again. Just realized?" "Just realized." I asked him, "When did you realize it?" "Call me Daddy, and I'll tell you." Extra 1. The first time I went to James's house to meet his parents, I was extremely nervous. "Did you really make things clear to your parents?" I double-checked. "If they know it's me who made their son gay, won't they kill me?" James ruffled my hair. "Don't worry. James's parents were good people, but they were very traditional." James said that in the half year after he came out to them, his dad wouldn't even talk to him. When I actually met his parents, I thought they were much kinder than James had described. James's dad asked me with a pained expression, "Oliver, you're such a handsome young man. How did you get on this wrong path? Did James lead you astray? Don't you really consider dating a pretty girl?" James pushed me aside. "Dad, I finally managed to win him over. Let him forget about other ideas. Don't mess things up for me." I felt extremely guilty and thought, it's the other way around. I'm the one who led him astray. James' mom was even more nervous than I was. "Young gay, would you like some fruits?" I was so embarrassed that I could have dug a hole with my toes. "Auntie, you can just call me Oliver." "Oh, Oliver, right. Oliver. I'm so sorry, dear. I'm just too nervous and got it wrong." James' mom wiped the sweat off her forehead, poured me a glass of water, and said, "Here, Have some water. Young gay. Extra 2. James was really nervous before he met my parents for the first time. I patted him and said, "Don't be nervous. They're really open-minded. My parents are very open-minded. I came out to them when I was in college, and they accepted it pretty quickly." James initially thought I was just trying to comfort him, until he actually met my parents. My dad circled around James, looking at him like he was an animal in the zoo. "Goodness, he's so tall. Now I know why my son is the bottom one. It makes sense. It makes sense." My mom secretly pulled James aside. "James, could you send me some photos of you and Oliver? All my girlfriends want to see them. They're really into you too. I've asked Oliver for them so many times, but he only sent one and then got too shy to send any more. Now my girlfriends are constantly asking for more. Hurry up." James responded quickly. "Sure, Auntie. I'll send them to you right away." After my mom received the photos, she grinned from ear to ear and immediately sent them to the group. After a while, she asked again, "My girlfriends want to know if you two can make a heart shape for them on the spot?"